Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the Weekly Album Spotlight. This is going to be the first one in a while. I apologize. I am bad at keeping up with regular series, as anybody who has watched this channel knows. Those Bob Dylan reviews are still not finished. Almost 2 years, maybe even over 2 years later. However, with, self-isolation going on and, public places not really being open and whatnot, there's no reason for me not to try to make more videos. And today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting group that I have not talked about before. I don't think I've even mentioned their existence before. And that is the KLF.
A dream, and yet see bright, yeah, past the mic. What time is love? What time is love? What time is love? What time is love?
Their second and final album, The White Room. KLF are a really weird band. They were a sort of neo-Dadaist, situationist, avant-garde art collective as much as they actually were musicians. They did a lot of things outside of their music which kind of overshadow their music, just to name a few. They were extremely successful under several different names. They, at the height of their fame, they burned £1 million on an island in Scotland.
We could have done with the money. We wanted the money, but we wanted to burn it more.
They fired machine guns loaded with blanks into the crowd. Dumped a dead sheep, reportedly similarly at a music biz party, and then they deleted their entire back catalog before quitting the music industry permanently, barring a one-off single, I think, in the year 2000, which in a pre-Napster, pre-streaming, pre-piracy being viable world basically meant that they made their entire back catalog unavailable, which is, on the one hand, there's a part of me that says that's genius, that's brilliant, it's this incredibly vindictive and bitter and cynical indictment of, the capitalist logic of art as a commodity. If a song is something that exists only in this moment to shift units, and its purpose is to get cash into the hands of music biz types and to a lesser extent the artists, then why should it exist at all outside of that moment? What's the purpose of it? Get rid of it. Its time passed. That time was about 6 months in 1990 to 1991, where, the British youth were gobbling up that sweet, sweet acid house, and, now, it's no use for it. Get rid of it, Dump it like the dead sheep, And then there's the other part of me. The other part of me is the collector that sometimes thinks, oh man, I would really like to complete my KLF collection. And then goes on Discogs and is not happy to see people asking almost $30 for a CD, a run-of-the-mill, bare-bones, basic CD from almost 30 years ago, and that doesn't make me happy. So it's mixed emotions, definitely mixed emotions. That being said, the music itself is genius. I'm not super well versed on the sort of house and rave music of the late 80s and early 90s. My feeling on this, from what I've read, is that this is like a very affectionate send-up of a lot of that music. Certainly there's a very ridiculous quality to a lot of this music. From the justified and ancient bit to the very soulful vocals, and so certainly something like The Church of the KLF. That's a very silly track, and there's just a lot of of weird, goofy stuff, you know, throughout the album. And you know, I hate to harp on it because it's one song on an amazing album. What Time Is Love was one of, I think, 3 tracks where they wrote it in, like, I think 87 or 88. And it went through about 5 different iterations in about as many years. And like there's a version that's very minimalist. There's the version that's on this album. There's the version that's on the UK album, because I should add, you know, this is the American version, which you can actually find pretty. You can find it for like pennies. Like I've seen this album in the like $5 for $3 bins at record stores. This one I think a lot of people bought over here back in the day. You know, this is a different mix than the European one, because there was a whole bunch of crowd noise and I think some Stevie Wonder samples that got taken out too. Anyway, there's that. There's a version. There's like a hair metal version of What Time Is Love, featuring one of the 70s Deep Purple vocalists that is just absolutely hilarious and one of my favorite things to ever exist.
Just remember, what time is love? What time is love? What time is love?
It's really interesting stuff, and I wish in a way I had more to say about it. You know, it's electronic music is not something I'm super familiar with, and to an extent that's one of those things where I could sort of blame it on my nationality. You know, I don't think the electronic music, and I don't know, I think maybe this kind of electronic music in particular, I don't know that this kind of electronic music was ever huge in America, and if it was, I don't think it was particularly big outside the big cities. Like our America's like knowledge of electronic music jumps pretty much like, or I mean the great unwashed knowledge of electronic music jumps like pretty sharply from that like big beat kind of techno. You know, techno's a dirty word, of course, that doesn't mean what I just used it to mean, but you know what I'm saying here. To dubstep, basically. So I don't know a whole lot about this strain of that. I know that their first album, Chill Out, was basically an ambient house album, and I know that one of the 2 KLF members was very strongly involved with the creation of The Orb, who are a band that I might actually like a little more than the KLF. I'll probably talk about them someday. You know, check The Orb out if you haven't. So that's very different from this, but you know, like I said, this is the one that it sort of intrigued me because it had a more commercial sound, and you know, everybody hypes this one up, and I'm just not super. I wasn't super familiar with this kind of music. I'm still not super familiar with this kind of music, but I've been slowly educating myself over the last minute. And so, on that note, I have probably misrepresented many things in this video. So you know, any of you KLF diehards out there, you fanboys of a 30-year-old band, sheep fetishizing weirdos, you know, feel free to unload your vitriol and hatred in the comment section. I'm pretty sure none of you will, because nobody watches these videos, but in any case, I will see you all later.